Hello everybody! So it's time for one of these versus videos. I've done quite a few of these, not all of them are gaming related, and I need to make a playlist for them. And this one, even though it is gaming related, it's a little bit different than the usual ones. It's Dreamcast by Sega versus Wii U by Nintendo. And some of you might be thinking, like, that doesn't make any sense. When did these two consoles compete? Well, that's the thing. Even though they were from different generations, Dreamcast from the 6th gen and Wii U from the 8th, they both have quite a bit in common, Both failed, both were pretty unique systems, and both had a great library of games, although I think Dreamcast had a better library. But first, let's talk about the failure, so to speak. The Wii U, that's another thing, both sold around the same amount of consoles, relatively the same. The Wii U failed because, well, the marketing for it was very poor. I always felt like Nintendo kind of just put it out there, like, kind of like, oh, here's our new console, and there was, really no hype behind it or anything. And plus, the name alone confused a lot of people. They thought it was an add-on for the Wii. The Dreamcast did have good marketing. Hell, remember the North American launch date, September 9th, 1999? And it's kind of sad to think that we'll never see another launch like that in our lifetime. The earliest I can think of is about 200 years from now, February 22nd, the year 2222. But anyway, the Dreamcast did have good marketing and stuff, but unfortunately, consumers and developers kind of really started to distrust Sega at this point, which that's a whole other story. Long story short, they just made a lot of bad decisions and stuff, which, like I said, led to people distrusting them. But as for the console themselves, we'll do a comparison on that now. The Dreamcast, like the GameCube, I guess you could say, had a is a top loader, I guess you could say. No power button, no reset button, which can be kind of annoying when you're trying to, you have to turn the console on and off. 4 controller ports, then you got the ports in the back for, the power and the USB and all that stuff. Well, you know what I mean. There was also a broadband adapter because, this was during the old dial-up days. And the funny thing, I'm pretty sure this was the last console to use bits, in the name, the NES was 8-bit, Genesis and Super Nintendo were 16-bit, PS1 and Sega Saturn were 32-bit, you get the idea. This was 128-bit, and it was the first and last one to say that. So then, as for the Wii U, this also lacks an reset button. It has a nice little slot in here for the, for the disc. It's got a disc drive. Then there's no controller ports because all the games are wireless, or controllers are wireless, excuse me. Then you got the ports in the back, one of which is for the what the heck do you call it? The sensor bar. They were kind of similar to the Wii. Another thing is, let's talk about memory real quick. The Wii U, had only 32 gigabytes. Because it's amazing when you think about it how far we've come when it comes to storage and stuff. It only had 32 gigabytes. That's nothing. The original one only had 8. I don't know what the hell they were thinking about that. But this one, you can open up this little slot in the front here, opens up, and you can put a, one of those little memory chip things in there to add extra. The Dreamcast used memory cards, which, whether these, I don't know if I'd call these the best memory cards ever made, but they're definitely the most unique. They're almost like little Game Boys in a way, you have, a D-pad, a couple of buttons on there and stuff, and, an LCD screen, because some of the games actually had, little miniature games, and they, instead of plugging into the console, they plugged into this. Kind of like the N64. And also, there was a little I don't have one on me right now, but there was like these little nubby things that you could put on the bottom here to protect the inner circuitry parts from dust, which was kind of nice. Now we'll talk about the controllers. With the Dreamcast controller, some people love it, some people hate it. One thing that's bizarre is that the cord comes out of the bottom, whereas they usually come out of the top. Sometimes you gotta hook it onto the top like that. And the thing, there's only one analog stick, and then a D-pad, so it's like, unfortunately, for some games, you have to use like directional buttons, because, like I said, there's only one D-pad, analog stick. And much like the N64, it has a start button but no select button. But the Dreamcast controller is very comfortable. It's got these like little grippy things on here, which honestly I don't think I've ever. There's something about the Dreamcast controller that when you hold it in your hands, it's very unique. Now, for the Wii U, we had the gamepad. This was the controller. It's literally almost the size of the console itself. It's just like slightly smaller than it. Now, interesting. This does have 2 analog sticks, a D-pad, and you got the X and Y buttons and all that. Start and select. There's the home guide button. Also, this little rectangular thing here, if you can, I don't know how well you can see it. This was actually a scanner, which was used for amiibos. Like, you scan amiibo, and it's funny because the amiibos came out like 2 years after this system, so it's like, was that always planned? There's also a camera in the front here. You got your stylus here. You got the sensor things and everything. There's a headphone jack. Because it was interesting is that a number of games for the Wii U, some of them, like, required you to look at the TV as well as the screen on this. Kind of like the DS systems. Now, let's talk about the games. So, first off, these aren't all the games I have for the Dreamcast and the Wii U. Like, I'm well aware that I'm leaving out some popular Dreamcast titles like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Shenmue, and Soul Calibur. And then, as for the Wii U, I have a lot of the games like Mario Kart 8, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, what the hell do you call it? Wonderful 101. A lot of those games were ported over to the Switch, so I have the Wii U version, so I'm not going to mention those. Hyrule Warriors was another one, and then Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which kind of launched simultaneously, like on the Wii U and the Switch. But anyway, as for the Dreamcast, we have Sonic Adventure, which was a launch title for the system, and yeah, it's true that it doesn't really hold up too well. Like, it's kind of, I don't know, it's hard to explain. But this will always be a favorite of mine because I kind of like the idea of having all the different characters, which each have like their own modes and stuff, even though some of them are kind of lame, for example. Lame, whatever. Like, Knuckles being one of my favorite characters of all time. Actually, my most favorite Sonic character of all time. His whole mode is kind of but anyway, and another thing is I always love the music in this game. It's like, it has that great, like, turn-of-the-century feel to it. So, yeah, and whether the game has aged well or not, it's really, I guess that's a matter of opinion, really. It's still, like, a cult classic on the system. One of the most recognized games for the system. And here's another one. Crazy Taxi. This is such a fun game. I like how, and it's such a simple. It's not like easy necessarily, but it's easy to pick up and play. Like, really, anybody could learn to play this game. It's not too hard. Sure, the controls are a little weird, but whatever. It just takes some getting used to. And I love the soundtrack in this because it's all like punk bands, like from Offspring and Bad Religion. Eventually, it was remade, or I should say, ported to the Xbox 360 and I believe the PS3 as well. They changed the soundtrack, but hey, you could use custom playlists. But anyway, that's another cult classic on the Dreamcast. This is one of my most favorite Dreamcast games, Dynamite Cop. sequel to Die Hard Arcade. It's a 3D beat 'em up. Where you go on a ship, fight all kinds of enemies with all kinds of crazy weapons and shit like that. And there's like it's 3 different modes, so to speak, or different difficulties. Each one has like a different path and stuff, but you can find custom art to look at and stuff, or artwork, I should say. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Next is Quake 3 Arena, and as I said before, for like this game example, it's like use the buttons to move, and then the analog stick kind of like aims and turns, so it can be a little tricky to go back and play, but I always felt like this was a time where first-person shooters were in their prime. At least in my opinion, this was like the best time for first-person shooters. You had the first Halo games, there was Quake 3 Arena, and the Time Splitters games. What the hell was the SOCOM, which I never really got into those games, but I know they were like huge online and stuff. And now we have something a little more obscure. Ooga Booga. It's basically it's pretty much Mario Party, but with whatchamacallit, like these voodoo witch doctor characters. It's fucked. But it's a lot of fun. I don't even remember how I came across this game, but I'm glad I did, because it's a lot of fun to play, especially with friends and stuff. Now the next game, this one is kind of sad, well, which I'll talk about more in that in a minute. Sega Smash Pack Volume 1. It's a compilation of Sega games from Sonic the Hedgehog to Shining Force, Streets of Rage 2, Virtual Cop 2, Vector Man, Altered Beast, and more. There's also a game called Sega Swirl, which is basically a puzzle game with all these like little colored swirls, and you have to try and clear the screen by mashing up the colored swirls together, and then they'll do like this little animation for clearing off the screen. When you mix them up, the more pieces you have together, the better the animation, the more points you get. It's actually very addicting. And what's sad is, because like I said, this was called Volume 1, so obviously they were planning to make more, Sega that is, but it never happened because the Dreamcast was discontinued and Sega pulled out of the console market. But maybe someday they'll make another one of these, or more of them. I mean, I love the Genesis, but do we really need, like, all these Genesis collections, It's like you have so many other great games, Sega, especially in the arcade, and then your games for the Saturn and stuff. It's like, make other collections. You can make another one of these, or 2 or 3. Now, these last couple of games are actually ROM hacks, because that's one of the great things about the Dreamcast, is that, basically it's it's very popular among like the ROM hack community and like what the hell is the word I'm looking for? Indie developers and stuff. People made like indie games for it, or they've made like reskin games, or they've made games that already exist but they're expensive. For example, let me just show it to you real quick. Power Stone Collection. Now, Power Stone 2 in particular is another one of my all-time favorite Dreamcast games. Unfortunately, both the Power Stone games are very expensive, especially the second one. The disc alone, I think, goes for like over $100. So, this is like a nice alternative. And, the case looks great and everything. Sure, there's no instruction manual or anything, but hell, the artwork and everything looks good. So basically, it's both games on a ROM hack disc for I think it was like $25 compared to like, if you wanted to buy Power Stone 2 complete. Like I said, the disc alone is over $100, so if you wanted the whole thing, the game, the instructions and everything, probably, I don't know, a few $100s would be my guess. I'm not going to take the time to look it up, but, so yeah, that's a nice thing that for Dreamcast games that are too expensive. You get like the ROM hack versions of them like this. They play just as good, and of course, like there are other systems that you can just have this with as well, like the NES, for example. This game is actually, like, I need to get a case for it, but basically it's a reskinned game of X-Men, the old X-Men arcade beat-em-up by Konami. It's basically that, but it's reskinned with, like, other characters from Marvel, not just X-Men, but, like, characters throughout the Marvel Universe, like Thanos and Captain America and shit like that. It's awesome, because I always loved that than X-Men games. When I saw that, I was like, ooh. Now, for the Wii U, first there's Game & Wario, which is kind of like, it's basically like WarioWare, but it's different. Like, each character has their own mode. Like, you can kind of see, because you gotta hold the gamepad in different ways for, like, for example, the Wario game. It's one of those old arcade type of games where you have to protect a couple of certain objects, and there'll be enemies oncoming. You have to shoot them away. So it's like basically you shoot arrows like this, like you pull back on the arrow. Like, you can kind of actually you can see the picture of it on the back there. And then, like, you know, you have what's her face, Ashley. You know, the little witch girl. You know, hers is kind of like a side-scrolling shooter, and you have to go like this and kind of like guide her, so to speak. 9-Volt, which is probably one of the best games on there. His is basically, you remember the days when you had to go, you went to bed, or you were supposed to be in bed, but instead you were like hiding under the sheets playing your Game Boy or something? Well, that's pretty much what 9-Volt's game is. It's him, you know, playing the game, and then he's playing like his game. So then it's like, on the gamepad, you have all these mini games, which are the games that he's playing, and then on the TV, you have 9-Volt, like, in his bed, which is in his bedroom, and then his mother will walk in, so you have to hit a button to try and, like, hide under the sheets, otherwise, you know, she'll see you playing a game, and then it's game over. And she comes in from a variety of ways, like, she'll come in through the door, she'll be outside, open the window, she comes in through the TV, so it's like you have to kind of keep looking back and forth. But, yeah. This next game is Nintendo Land. This was a pretty interesting title. It was a pack-and-play game. Some people like it, some people don't. I always thought it was pretty fun. Basically, you use your Mii's, and then you go to, like, this theme park with all these series of games that are basically... It looks like Nintendo games, but they're made with, like... how the hell do you call it? Like Tinker Toys. Look like Nintendo characters made out of Tinker Toys. And it can actually go up to like 5 players, because that was another thing, was that the Wii U was actually backwards compatible with the Wiimotes. So you know, some games, like for example, there's an F-Zero one where you have to go like this to aim it, like the you know, it's like Captain Falcon. You have to aim it like this across the screen. Another one is basically like all these like ninjas that you have to like go like this and shoot shuriken at them. There's a Legend of Zelda one, which is kind of the same as like the Wario bow and arrow type of thing. And then there's ones that are specifically for 2 players, where basically one or more player uses the Wiimote, and they have to try and collect like berries from a tree and put them in like a bowl or something, and then while looking at the TV, and then another person holds the gamepad, and they use the analog sticks to control these little like guard dog characters. I never got into Animal Crossing, but it's like these guard dogs. If you ever did, maybe you know who I'm talking about. These little guard dogs, and you have to try and catch the others while you're using this. But you get the idea. And then what's also, you get like coins that you can use to find like little, use them to get like basically all the characters and stuff that are in the game, like in the game stuff. You get those and like decorate the whole arcade area, well, theme park area, which is kind of interesting. And next is Star Fox Zero and Star Fox Guard, excuse me, because both these games came bundled together. Starting with Star Fox Guard, it was a spin-off title where you play as Slippy and his uncle, Grippy, I believe his name was. It's a tower defense game. You know, we have like these little, kind of like, it's like a maze fort type thing, and you have to, well, you can kind of see it on the cover there. You know, you have to watch all these different cameras and set up guns and stuff to try and drive off all these robots. It's an okay game. I like tower defense games, but I have to be in the right mood to play them. As for Star Fox Zero, which was a remake of Star Fox 64, which was a remake of the original Star Fox, I personally love this game. Some people love it, some people hate it. I thought it was awesome. Sure, the campaign is a little too short, but maybe that's why they bundle it with this. And I don't know, it's just, I've talked about this game a lot on my channel. It might be my favorite Wii U game. The graphics are amazing. Well, maybe not amazing, but there's parts in the game where you have to like switch back and forth between the like the screen and the TV, or the TV and the screen, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. For example, there's this helicopter thing you use, which drops down this little robot, and you use this to see the robot's perspective, because you need to use it to like go into little corridors and open doors and things like that. One thing that's really weird is that the voices don't come from the TV, they come from the gamepad, which is really weird. Another thing is the controls are kind of clunky, so they take some getting used to. But overall, it's a pretty good game. At least I thought so. These next games are kind of like these last two games are kind of a technicality type of thing. First is Super Mario Maker, which eventually got a sequel for the Switch. Hard to believe that was like 5 years ago. Jesus. Anyway, and this came out 10 years ago. But anyway, I'm sure you're all familiar with Super Mario Maker, whether it be this one or the second one. You make your own Mario levels and stuff, and then upload them online for people to play. You can download theirs, and etc., etc. But what's nice is that I think with this version, it was nicer that you had the screen and the stylus. It was a lot easier to make levels, excuse me, with this version, with this. Another thing is that the Super Mario Brothers levels, you can get these little NES-style sprites of wide variety of characters, pretty much like everyone in Smash Brothers, and it was like, yeah. There's like all kinds of like weird characters and stuff and shit that you could just use for like alternate skins in the game. That wasn't brought back in the second one, but it is what it is. Hell, I guess you could say they made Link as like a, but he was kind of like his own type of character, which is also pretty cool. And the last one is Super Smash Bros. Wii U, which, again, eventually you got a new game for the Switch, which was basically like, it wasn't a port of this, but it was like a more, it's basically, yeah, well, you know what I mean. They updated it, I guess you could say. I don't know. Anyway, interesting thing with this is, because this has some features that are missing in Switch, in the Ultimate, excuse me, because it's a different game. So, for starters, there's a mode that's kind of like a board game where you basically collect fighters and then you all fight each other at the end. The last boss is very different. It's Master Hand and then Crazy Hand if you add, like, the higher the difficulty, and then if you make the difficulty higher, Master Hand or Crazy Hand, when you beat one of them, the other one turns into this, like, dark creature type thing. I forget the name of it. And if you make the difficulty even higher, that dark creature then eventually turns into this whole, like, dark cave level thing, and you have to go inside and beat the heart. It's very tricky. Also, this was the last Smash Brothers game to have trophies, because in Ultimate, instead you have spirits, which I do like, because I feel like there's a lot more of them. And I like how you can, like, combine two together to make, like, a new one and things like that, but I really like the whole trophy system better. Anyway, so that was the Dreamcast and the Wii U, which, two underrated systems that failed to sell successfully. One killed Sega, another one kind of just fumbled Nintendo a little. So, what did you think of these two systems? Like, did you own them? Do you own them? Which one do you think is more underrated? Which one did you enjoy more? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your week, and as always, thanks for watching.